The forest lay thick under a blanket of mist, the kind of mist that whispered of secrets long hidden. Celine moved carefully between the trees, her senses sharp, alert. Her pups played nearby, their laughter barely disturbing the heavy silence of the ancient woods. For years she had lived alone with them, building a life away from the Lycan king who had once been her world. Kyle had abandoned them. The memory of that day was etched into her mind like fire on stone. He had been young, proud, and blinded by the threats to his throne. He had chosen duty over love, leaving her with 2 tiny lives to care for and a heart broken beyond measure. The anger never fully faded, though survival demanded she bury it deep. Her eldest pup, a boy with curious eyes like hers, darted ahead into a patch of silver moonlight. Celine called after him sharply, "Jaren, stay close!" But the boy's curiosity was stronger than caution. He followed the glimmering trail of the moonlight as if it called his name. Celine's heart tightened as she realized where he was heading, straight toward the boundary of Kale's lands she had long feared. Kale stood in the shadows, watching. The mist curled around him like a cloak, hiding his presence from the untrained eye. His golden eyes, fierce and unyielding, fell on the boy, and a storm of recognition struck him like a blade. The child's features, small yet unmistakable, carried the bloodline he had thought lost forever. Time seemed to stop as Kale's mind raced. Could it be true? Could they have survived all these years thriving without him? The thought filled him with a bitter ache. Years of solitude, of ruling a kingdom with an empty heart, came rushing back. The boy turned suddenly, startled by something he couldn't see. Celine appeared from behind the trees, her eyes blazing, her voice sharp as a whip. "Jaren, you cannot go there!" Kale stepped forward, his presence imposing yet strangely cautious. He could see the wariness in her stance, the tension in her posture, and he knew that his sudden appearance would ignite the old wounds. Yet he could not look away. The woman who had once been his mate, the mother of his children, stood before him, older, stronger, and somehow still achingly familiar. Celine's gaze locked on him. The years fell away, replaced by the rush of emotions she had tried to bury. Anger, betrayal, longing, all tangled together, and yet she forced her voice steady. "Kale," she said, her tone cold. "You shouldn't be here." Kyle's jaw tightened. "I could say the same to you," he replied quietly, his voice low and controlled, but carrying a weight of regret. "I did not expect to find you here." Celine's pupils narrowed. "Find us or control us?" Her hand rested protectively on her pup's shoulder. The boy, sensing tension, pressed close to her side, his small body trembling slightly. "I did not come to harm you," Kale said. His words felt hollow even to him. He had abandoned them, and no promise could erase that. But instinct and blood demanded he act. The child's life, so close to danger, called to him. "You abandoned us once," Celine said, her voice breaking slightly. "Do not think that I have forgotten." Kale lowered his head. The weight of his past decisions pressed down on him. He had left to protect them, or at least that was what he had told himself. A prophecy had warned that his presence would bring danger to his mate and pups. But that reasoning had never lessened the ache of leaving them. He had walked away, leaving a family behind, and he had spent every day since regretting it. Celine's anger flared again. "You had a choice, Kale. You chose yourself. You left us to the forest to survive alone." Her words were sharp, but her eyes betrayed the trembling shadow of hurt beneath her rage. Kale wanted to reach out, to take her hand, to tell her that he had suffered in her absence as much as she had. Yet the pride that had always ruled him and the fear of rejection kept him still. Instead, he spoke softly. "I never stopped thinking of you, of them, of you." Celine's gaze softened for the briefest moment, then hardened again. "Words are easy, Kale. Survival is hard." The boy, oblivious to the tension, tugged at her hand. "Mother, the moon is so bright tonight. Can we see the river?" Celine's heart clenched. Her pups were the reason she survived, the reason she could not succumb entirely to despair. She nodded reluctantly, releasing the boy's hand. "Yes, Jaren, but stay close." Kale's eyes followed them. The sight of her with their children stirred something deep inside him, both longing and regret. He knew he had no right to interfere, but a protective instinct surged within him. He could not stand idly by. The mist thickened, curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. Kale moved silently, keeping to the shadows, observing the mother and children as they approached the river. He remembered walking these paths with Celine, the moonlight casting silver patterns on the water as they had once spoken of love and future dreams. Memories he had buried deep now rose with painful clarity. Suddenly, a sound cracked through the forest, a snapping branch, loud and dangerous. The pups froze and Celine's head snapped toward the noise. Her eyes widened in fear. Cale's instincts kicked in. He leapt forward, positioning himself between the danger and the family he had abandoned. In that moment, all pride and fear vanished. Only one thing remained: their safety. From the shadows, a rival wolf pack emerged, eyes glinting with malice, drawn by the presence of Celine and the pups. They had long coveted Cale's territory, and now weakness had appeared in his domain. Celine stepped back, shielding her children, heart pounding in her chest. She realized for the first time in years that she had no one but Cale who could face such a threat. Cale's golden eyes burned as he growled, the sound echoing through the trees like thunder. The rival wolves hesitated, sensing the power radiating from him. He moved forward, tall and commanding, his presence alone enough to make the intruders falter. Selena watched, torn between fear and awe. The man before her was still the Lycan king she had once loved, fierce and unyielding, yet something had changed. The anger in his eyes was tempered with longing, and she sensed a vulnerability she had never seen before. The intruders finally backed away, retreating into the darkness. Cale did not follow. His gaze lingered on Celine and the pups, ensuring they were safe before he turned slightly away. Celine exhaled shakily, her hands gripping the shoulders of her children. "That was close," she whispered. Cale's voice broke the silence. "They are yours. Safe for now." Celine met his eyes, emotions warring within her. "Why are you here, Cale?" His jaw tightened, the old pride returning slowly. "Because I cannot stay away." The words were simple, but they carried years of unsaid sorrow, of love buried beneath mistakes and regrets. Celine looked at him, and for a moment, the forest seemed still. The mist swirled around them, hiding them from the world, leaving only their hearts to speak. Neither spoke again, but both understood. A chapter of their lives had reopened, one neither was prepared to close. As the moonlight reflected on the river, Selene pulled her children closer. "We must leave," she said softly, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and something else, something she did not yet dare to name. Kyle nodded, but his eyes lingered on the family he had lost, on the mate he had left behind. The past had returned in full force, and with it, a storm of emotions he could neither control nor resist. The night held its breath as Celine led her children away. Cale remained in the shadows, watching them disappear into the forest. He knew this encounter was only the beginning. The bond of blood and love could not be so easily broken, no matter the years, no matter the pain, and deep within, he made a silent promise. Whatever it took, he would find a way back into their lives. Not as a ruler commanding loyalty, but as the mate who had never truly stopped loving them. The mist closed around him once more, hiding his form, but the fire in his heart burned brighter than ever. The past had returned, and with it, the reckoning that would shape all their futures. The sun had barely risen when Selena returned to the small clearing where she and her pups had made a temporary camp. The mist had lifted, leaving the forest quiet, yet her mind remained stormy. The encounter with Cale the night before refused to leave her thoughts. She could still see the golden eyes, the way his presence had filled the space between the trees, the storm of regret hidden beneath his pride. Her eldest pup, Jaren, tugged at her sleeve, holding a small bundle of wildflowers he had picked. "Mother, look! I brought these for the moon." Celine forced a smile. "They are beautiful, Jaren." Yet even as she spoke, she felt the weight of uncertainty pressing on her heart. The Lycan king was no longer a distant memory. He was real, powerful, and closer than ever. She could not deny it. There had always been a part of her that longed for him. The nights spent listening to the wind through the trees, the quiet moments with her children, they had been filled with thoughts of Cale. Yet she had survived, raising her pups without him, proving to herself that she did not need him. And now, after all these years, he had returned. Cale, meanwhile, returned to his castle, the weight of the night pressing on him. His throne felt heavier than ever, his mind clouded with images of Selene and their children. He had watched over them without their knowledge, keeping them safe from afar. But seeing them so close, so vulnerable, stirred something deep and uncontrollable within him. He could not simply walk away. Not now. Not when his heart had been bound to them all this time. He needed to speak to Celine to explain, to prove that his love had never died. Yet he knew the risk. She had every right to hate him, to reject him, to refuse any contact. Pride and fear warred within him as he made his decision. He would not leave until he had at least tried. The forest remained quiet, almost eerily so as Celine guided her pups along a hidden path toward a small river. The water gleamed under the early morning sun, reflecting the silver light in a way that reminded her of nights long ago, when she had walked this path with Kale. Memories she had tried to forget now returned unbidden. She shook her head, forcing herself to focus on the present, on keeping her family safe. Kyle appeared again, stepping silently from the shadows. Celine froze, her hand instinctively reaching for the hilt of a small dagger she always carried. Her children, sensing tension, pressed close. "You shouldn't follow us," she said, her voice calm but firm, hiding the rapid beating of her heart. Kyle's gaze softened. "I am not here to harm you," he said gently. "I came to explain. To protect. That is all." Celine's eyes narrowed. "Explain, protect? Do you know what it feels like to raise children alone? To survive every day knowing the father who promised to love you walked away?" Kale's jaw tightened. The truth weighed heavily on him. "I know I cannot erase the past," he said softly. "But I never stopped caring. I never stopped loving you. And I will do everything to make this right." Celine's heart ached. Words had never been enough, and yet there was something in his voice, in the raw honesty of his gaze, that stirred a cautious hope within her. But years of hurt did not vanish so easily. "Actions speak louder than words, Kyle," she said. Kyle nodded, understanding the challenge. "Then allow me to act," he replied. "Let me show you that I am here. Not as a king commanding obedience, but as the mate who never stopped loving you." Before Celine could respond, a distant howl cut through the forest, sharp and threatening. Her pupils narrowed as she realized the danger immediately. Another pack had detected their presence, wolves drawn to the scent of bloodline and power. They were not far, and their intent was clear. Kale moved instinctively, placing himself between the threat and Celine and her children. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of both a ruler and a protector. The rival pack emerged from the trees, eyes glinting with malice. Their leader, a massive wolf with scars marking past battles, growled low, testing Kale's resolve. The tension between them was palpable, the air charged with power. Celine gripped her children, unsure of what to do. For the first time, she realized that her survival alone might not be enough. Kale's presence, though it brought pain and longing, also brought protection. And with him there was a chance, just a chance, that they could face this threat together. Kale growled, a deep and powerful sound that resonated through the forest. The rival pack hesitated, sensing his strength, yet their hunger and ambition pushed them forward. Celine's heart raced. She wanted to step forward, to fight, to protect her children, but she also knew her limits. This was Kale's domain, his strength unmatched by her alone, and yet fear and old wounds warred within her. Could she trust him again? Could she allow herself to hope? The battle was swift and intense. Kale moved with precision and power, his movements both graceful and lethal. The rival wolves faltered under his strength, retreating into the shadows. Yet even in victory, Kale remained vigilant, ensuring Celine and her children were safe. After the threat had passed, the forest returned to silence. Celine's breaths came fast, her body tense, her mind swirling with emotions. She looked at Kale, seeing both the fierce protector and the man who had abandoned them all those years ago. "You saved them," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear, gratitude, and something deeper she did not yet name. Kyle's expression softened. "I promised myself I would never let anything happen to them," he said. "Not again." Celine studied him, searching for signs of the man who had left, the man who had caused so much pain. But there was only Kale before her, strong, regretful, and undeniably devoted. The pups, sensing the tension, approached Kale cautiously. Jaren reached out a small hand. Are you my father?" he asked softly. Celine's eyes widened, torn between shielding her child and acknowledging the truth. Kyle knelt slowly, keeping his distance, letting the boy approach at his own pace. "Yes," he said gently. I am your father. I have always been your father, even if I was not there. The boy looked at him, eyes wide, with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Cale extended a hand, not demanding trust, but offering it. Slowly, Jaren took it, gripping tightly. The connection, fragile but real, sparked something within Selena. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a small breath of hope. Perhaps Cale's return was not just a reminder of pain, but a chance for redemption, for him and for them all. Yet the forest held its secrets, and Selena knew this was only the beginning. Kyle's return would not erase the past, and the danger they had just faced was only a taste of what might come. Rival packs, political threats, and the shadow of the prophecy that had once forced Cale to leave still lingered, waiting for the right moment to strike. Selene turned to Cale, her voice steady but cautious. We cannot stay here. It is not safe. Kyle nodded, his gaze lingering on her face. Then we will leave together. I will protect you no matter what comes. The words, simple yet powerful, carried the weight of years lost and promises unkept. Selene felt a flutter of emotion she had long suppressed. Fear, longing, and hope mingled together in her chest. Could she trust him? Could she allow herself to believe in the possibility of love and protection once more? As they prepared to move deeper into the forest, the mist began to rise again, curling around their feet and hiding their path. The world felt uncertain, filled with both danger and possibility. And Cale, walking beside them, knew that every step forward would be a step toward redemption, or a reminder of the past they could not escape. The sun climbed higher, illuminating the forest with a golden light that felt almost sacred. For a moment, Selene allowed herself to believe that perhaps they could survive together, that perhaps love could heal what years of separation had broken. Yet in the distance, a shadow watched. The rival pack had not forgotten, and whispers of old rivalries and dark prophecies stirred in the wind. Their journey was far from over, and the path ahead would test their hearts, their strength, and the fragile bond that had begun to form once more. Selene glanced at Cale, her eyes searching his. We have survived before, she said quietly. Perhaps we can survive again. Together. Cale's gaze met hers, unwavering and full of emotion. Together, he agreed. And for the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope, a chance to reclaim the family he had lost, and perhaps to heal the wounds of the past. But the forest remained watchful, and the danger was far from over. The day had only begun, and with it the tides of desire, regret, and destiny had begun to pull them into a story that would change their lives forever. The full moon rose high over the forest, casting a silver glow that turned every leaf and stone into something ethereal. Selene and her pups had found a small clearing near the cliffside river, a place she had once walked with Cale before fate tore them apart. The mist lingered, curling around the trees and hiding them from prying eyes, yet everything felt exposed, as if the night itself watched their hearts. Selene's children played quietly, sensing the tension in the air, while she stood apart gazing at the moonlit water. Her thoughts swirled with doubt and hope. Kyle's presence haunted her, a constant reminder of pain and longing. Could she truly forgive the mate who had abandoned them all those years ago? Could she trust him to remain by her side now? Cale stepped from the shadows, his form strong and commanding, yet cautious. His golden eyes softened as they fell upon Selene, and he took a careful step forward. Selene, he said quietly, I have come to make things right. Selene's jaw tightened, her arms crossing over her chest. Words are easy, Cale. You left us once. Why should I believe you will not leave again? Cale lowered his head, the weight of his past decisions pressing upon him. Because I have learned. Because I cannot live without you and them. I failed you once and I cannot fail again. The wind stirred, carrying whispers of old curses and prophecies echoing through the trees. The night seemed alive, charged with the power of the full moon. Selene felt a shiver of fear mixed with longing. She wanted to trust him, but years of pain were not easily erased. Before she could respond, the shadow of the rival wolf pack appeared on the cliffside path. Their eyes glinted with malice, drawn by the scent of Cale's bloodline and the presence of the children. Selene's heart leapt into her throat. They had survived the last encounter, but now the threat had returned stronger and more dangerous. Cale stepped forward, positioning himself between the intruders and Selene's family. The air thickened with tension, every heartbeat echoing through the clearing. His power radiated outward, a force both protective and commanding. and the rival wolves hesitated, sensing his strength. "You will not touch them," Kale growled, his voice deep and unyielding. The pack leader, a massive wolf with jagged scars marking its past battles, snarled and lunged forward. Kale moved with precision and grace, his form a blur of strength and speed. The rival wolves faltered under his power, retreating step by step. Yet even in victory, Kyle remained vigilant, his gaze never leaving Celine and her children. Selena watched, torn between fear and awe. The man before her was still the Lycan king she had loved, fierce and protective, yet beneath the armor of strength, she saw the vulnerability that had always been his secret. He had returned, not for power, not for glory, but for them. The rival pack, defeated but not entirely gone, vanished into the shadows. The forest returned to silence, broken only by the gentle ripple of the river. Celine's knees weakened slightly, and she sank to the ground, relief and exhaustion mingling in her chest. Kyle stepped closer, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. "You are safe," he said softly. "I will not let anything harm you again." Celine's eyes searched his, searching for truth in the face of old pain. "Why now, Kale? After all these years?" He knelt before her, keeping a careful distance but letting his gaze hold hers. "Because I cannot live without you. Because leaving was the greatest mistake of my life. Because I will fight, protect, and love you until the end of my days." Tears prickled her eyes, memories of loss and longing surfacing. The boy she had raised alone, the nights she had endured without him, the silent ache of a heart abandoned. All of it collided with the presence of the man kneeling before her, offering love and protection without demand or command. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she reached out. Kale's hand hovered near hers, and for a long moment neither moved. Then finally their fingers touched, bridging years of separation and pain. The connection was electric, a spark of hope and healing that neither time nor absence could erase. The pups, sensing the shift, ran forward and embraced Kale, their small hands and feet clinging to the father they had never known. Kale's eyes softened further, the golden fire in them tempered by love and devotion. He lifted them gently, holding them close, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. Selene watched, a warmth spreading through her chest. She realized for the first time in years that perhaps the past could be forgiven, that perhaps Kale's love was real, and that together they could face the dangers of their world. Yet the night was far from peaceful. From the distant trees, the wind carried whispers of ancient curses, echoes of prophecies that had once guided Kale's choices. The forest, alive with magic, seemed to hum with anticipation. Selene understood that their journey was only beginning. Kale turned his gaze back to her, serious and unwavering. "There is more to tell," he said. "About why I left, about the forces that tried to keep us apart. You have a right to know." Selene nodded, her trust cautious but growing. "Then tell me," she said softly. "I need to hear everything." Kyle took a deep breath, his voice steady and calm. "When the prophecy was revealed, it warned that our family would face great danger if I stayed. I chose to leave, believing it would protect you. But the cost, leaving you and the pups, was unbearable. I have regretted it every day. I have lived with the pain of knowing I abandoned the ones I loved most." Celine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. The explanation did not erase the past, but it offered a glimpse of the truth she had longed for. Kale's love had never wavered. It had only been hidden behind the weight of fear and duty. As the moon climbed higher, they sat together, the pups playing nearby, and Kale continued to share his story, of the battles he had fought, the dangers he had kept them from, and the longing that had never left his heart. Selena listened, her own emotions a mixture of sorrow, relief, and tentative hope. Finally she spoke, her voice steady despite the tears. "I cannot forget the past, Kale, but perhaps we can start again. Not as king and mate, but as a family together." Kale's eyes shone with unspoken emotion. "That is all I ask. That is all I need." The forest seemed to hold its breath, the mist curling around them like a protective embrace. For the first time in years, Selene allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future with Kale, one filled with love, protection, and unity. The night passed with quiet peace, the moon casting silver light over their small clearing. Selene and Kale sat side by side, the distance between them bridged by shared history and the fragile hope of reconciliation. The pups slept safely, their small bodies entwined with the warmth of family. As dawn approached, The first rays of sunlight touched the forest, illuminating the world with golden light. Kale stood, holding Selena's hand gently. "Come," he said. "We have a long journey ahead, but together we will face it." Selene nodded, her heart steady and her trust growing. "Together," she agreed, and so, under the first light of day, they walked forward as a family, stronger for the trials they had endured, united by love, and ready to face the dangers and magic of their world. Yet even as they moved forward, a shadow stirred in the distance, a reminder that the forest, full of ancient curses and dark forces, still held mysteries and challenges. Their story was not over, but the bond they had rebuilt would be their strength. The Lycan king and his mate had been torn apart by fate, but they had found each other again, and this time they would not be separated. The moonlit night had tested them and they had survived. Together they would reclaim their family, their love, and their destiny. The forest whispered around them, the mist curling like a promise. Love could endure even in the darkest of nights, and hope could bloom where shadows had once ruled.